Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's true crime case is on Brazilian-born Carla Vicentini. Carla was born on the 29th of August 1983. She was the eldest daughter of three, and she was very close to her parents, Tanya and Orlando Vicentini. She had a boyfriend called Tiago, which is James in English, and he was from Rio de Janeiro. The 22-year-old was from an agricultural town named Goiôerê in the state of Paraná. I think the fact that she grew up in quite a small community has a lot to do with her having been so open and trustful of strangers. But we'll come to that later. She is described as being kind-hearted, friendly, really sociable, with a contagious laugh. To describe her physically, she was 5'7", around 60 kilos in weight. She had multiple body piercings and tattoos. She had a grey angel on her back, a red and yellow chameleon on her hip, and a tribal tattoo on her lower back. Her piercings were in her tongue, on her navel, and she also had some ear piercings. She'd also previously fractured the right side of her collarbone. Back in Brazil, she was at university studying to become an engineer. She was studious, bright, very focused on her future. She had made friends with others who had been on student exchange programs to the US and was keen to have the same experience herself, particularly because of her interest in textile engineering, which she could learn more about if she spent time in America. She spent some months saving up a bunch of money and got herself onto the exchange program through the privately run World Study Agency, which is considered one of the top agencies in Brazil. They basically provide you with a casual job and access to education, learning English being a priority, something she wasn't proficient in. I should mention that the agency leaves it up to the student to sort their own accommodation out. She was excited about her trip overseas. Her parents threw her a going away party. The plan was for her only to spend about 8 weeks there. However, her visa did allow her to stay for a full 5 months. She flew from Brazil to the US on January the 19th, 2006. The agency had booked her stay at what turned out to be a pretty unappealing motel called the Roxbury Circle, which is in Ledgewood in New Jersey. This is obviously where they recurringly accommodate exchange students, as she found herself plonked amongst a whole gaggle of raucous women. This motel is situated along Route 46, and the job she was assigned was in the fast food burger restaurant White Castle in Dover, which is about 4.8 miles to the east of Ledgewood. It's likely she took public transport to her job, or she may have hitched a lift with someone from the motel. It's not clear, though there were mentions of her having lifts from friends, so who knows. What is certain is that the motel situation didn't have the most ideal living arrangements. Online reviews today make the place sound pretty hideous. Now, she met another exchange student, Maria Eduarda Ribeiro, for the first time at the motel. I'll refer to her as Eduarda from now on. So she met her at the Roxbury Circle, both of them having been placed there by the same agency. Neither of them content with their situation and clearly connecting over disliking their living arrangements, and both wanted to find somewhere else to work. Carla gave it a couple of weeks, but she eventually rang home about it. Her father, who's an accountant, just so happened to have a client friend who, because of his businesses, had a home in both their hometown of Coyote and also an apartment in Newark. His name is José Madeira Martins Fernandes. I refer to him as José Fernandes from now on. He was 75 years old and had lived in Newark for 42 years. So, as I understand it, the US was more his permanent place of residence, and he would regularly return to Brazil. Anyway, when approached by Carla's father, he offered to let the girls stay in the living room of his apartment in Newark, asking only that in return they would help out with housework. They agreed, and Carla was thrilled. She moved in on Saturday the 4th of February, and her new friend Eduarda moved in 2 days later on Monday the 6th. It was José Fernandes' son, who lived locally, who was the one who sorted out a new job for Carla. So she left the job at White Castle, the burger joint, and started working at the Mediterranean Manor, which is a venue that caters for large events, and that's situated on Jefferson Street. Eduarda was also starting a new job, which is only 9 blocks to the south of the Mediterranean Manor, all pretty much within walking distance of each other. Things were falling into place. Her parents said that when they spoke over the phone during these few days, She sounded over the moon. She was really happy in the apartment with Eduardo, and the new job was great. Sadly, it wasn't to last. Within 22 days of arriving in the US, she vanished into thin air. It was a mere 6 days after she moved into José Fernandez's apartment that she went missing. Her friend Eduarda started her new job as a cocktail waitress on the day that Carla went missing. It was at Eduarda's new place of work that Carla was last seen. Let's trace Carla's footsteps leading to her disappearance. It was Thursday, the 9th of February 2006, and both girls had work that day. Carla went to work at the Mediterranean Manor. Now, some reports say she went home straight after work to change out of her work clothes, and then went on to join Eduarda at her new place of work, which is a bar called Adega Grill. Some reports say she popped into the Adega Grill first, stayed for a little while, and then went home, and on return appeared slightly tipsy. There are conflicting reports about her movements, and they are important because it isn't clear when and how some of her things were found back at the apartment. On the day she went missing, she was wearing a white sleeveless shirt, a blue Hugo Boss jacket, either blue or white jeans, light brown ankle boots. She had a silver ball in her navel, a silver ball piercing in her tongue. She was wearing a sports wristwatch on her left wrist, a silver ring on her ring finger, 2 silver rope necklaces, one with a pendant. The Adega Grill is on Ferry Street, which is a very busy street, 24 hours a day. She was reported to have arrived at the Adega at around 10:30. It's said to be a popular place to hang out. Super rowdy environment, lively music, that sort of thing. Keeping in mind that this was Eduarda's first night on the job, and the place was bustling with people. Not to mention she was working in a foreign language. What stood out to her most of all that night was Carla chatting to an unfamiliar man. He was described as being in his 30s, around 5'8" in height, approximately 200 pounds or 90 kilos, stocky broad shoulders with blue eyes, grey hair, unshaven, and he went by the name Antonio. Eduarda says she didn't like the look of him, whilst the rest of the crowd was full of life. He stood out because he was glum, straight-faced, unfriendly. He'd got Carla's undivided attention by only chatting to her, and he kept the drinks coming. He'd wired the stairs that Carla told her she was just stepping outside with him. This was apparently around 2:30 in the morning, and when Eduardo warned her it might not be the best idea, Carla produced his mobile number, or cell phone number. I'm guessing as some sort of safety measure, but the paper she wrote it on, it got misplaced amongst the tabs throughout the night. So no one knows if the number was genuine or whether this is a made-up story. There's a whole saga over the reason she gave when Eduardo asked her why she had to go outside with him. She claims that Carla said he was going to show her a picture which he had in his car. A lot of people have commented online that it's weird when these days we all have stuff on our mobile phones. To be honest, to me it's beside the point. If this really was the exchange that happened between the girls, maybe it's true. Maybe it's the first thing that came to Carla's mind as a quick excuse or quick reason to go off as she intended. There is no doubt that Carla was having a great time, enjoying herself and looking to keep the fun night going. Bars in the area had to close at 3 a.m. and a lot of people tended to make their way to New York to carry on at bars there that remained open for a few more hours. There's no question she was going with the flow, having fun, but once she left the bar, she was never seen again. Her sociable, open manner made her naive, and what is inevitably true is that she trusted the wrong person. But unfortunately, who that is, nobody knows. Now there are so many contradictory statements and multiple accounts of what happened that night. It just complicates getting to the actual truth. The first I'd like to mention is that a male friend reportedly drove her to the Adega bar that night, and with her she apparently had a bag of clothes. But we don't know who that is. It could be just an innocent person giving her a lift. But at the same time, she was said to be a little bit tipsy on arriving at the Adega. So, was he someone important to the case? Could he, whoever he is, have planned to meet her later on? Or what if he was waiting for her by her apartment, and that's who she trusted on returning home? The other thing is, some witnesses say they saw her walking alone, going back to the apartment she was staying at, and others say they saw her getting into a car with an unknown male. If she got into a car with an unknown male, who was he? Could he have been the man who gave her a lift earlier on that night? Or was it the so-called Antonio from the bar? Furthermore, the FBI said It was an hour earlier that she stepped outside, at 1:30 a.m. Again, there has been some suspicion about her friend, Eduarda, that she invented the man, Antonio, that he didn't exist, and that explains why she claims that Carla was in the bar for a full hour longer than the FBI stated the case. I'm not going to go further into this because I really don't think Eduarda had anything to do with it, other than being a new, concerned friend. Remember, she too was experiencing being in a foreign country, and everything was new to her just as much as it was for Carla. She was on the first night of her new job, in a really busy, noisy environment. Her attention will have been mostly on serving customers, focusing on getting drinks to people and basically trying to keep up in a foreign language. If she thought it was an hour later, then maybe she read her watch wrong or just simply misremembered the time. I don't think it's a big deal. I do think that what she noticed most of all that night about Carla was that she was chatting to someone that she didn't like the look of. So that's what stood out to her. In actual fact, the FBI stated that Carla hadn't spent the night just chatting to this guy, Antonio, but had actually been making the rounds at the bar, chatting to different people and having a fun night. So, we go back to that possibility. In theory, it could have been anyone in that bar that night. What does make alarm bells ring for me is the following. It transpired that the owner of this bar concealed all the footage of Carla in the bar that night. Why on earth would he do that? That I really find alarming. What was he hiding? There are plenty of witnesses that placed her there from 10:30 p.m. until at least 1:30 a.m. or possibly later. Who was the man who she was seen with? My opinion is that whoever this man was that she was chatting to, he needs to be found. They chatted for some time. He gained her trust, and she stepped outside with him. He's the one who knows what happened next. When searching for her or anything belonging to her, the FBI found the jacket she was wearing at the bar that night, her handbag with a passport and wallet. When they found them at the apartment, with no signs of struggle or any signs of attempting to clean or a crime scene. So in theory, it means she did make it back to the apartment, but then presumably left. Some people think José Fernandez, or possibly his son, have something to do with her disappearance. José Fernandez was criticized for having cut the Vicentini family out of his life and supposedly fled to Brazil, leaving many suspicious of him. I may be wrong, but in my opinion, I don't think he has anything to do with it. Let's recap his part in this. He was in his mid-70s. He was phoned up out of the blue and asked by his Brazilian accountant It was an acquaintance whether he would be kind enough to house their daughter temporarily and her new friend, both who were in their early 20s. So there's a difference of 50 odd years between them. Being courteous, he offered the only spare space he had, which was his living room. What I see is an older man and his son helping these youngsters find their feet, remembering that Brazilians as a nation are incredibly generous people. There's one thing I know about them, it's that there is an unsaid rule that what is theirs is yours. They are an incredibly giving and sharing nation. That's just their way of being. So, having opened up his home, his son having sorted out a job for the daughter, within days he's being accused of having had something to do with her disappearance. I can understand why he wouldn't be willing to remain in touch. I honestly think this man is innocent. I just don't think he has anything to do with it at all. I think he has been insulted to the core. He's reported to have said as much, that he wishes never to set eyes on the Vicentini family as a result of defamation of character. The fact that he left the US abruptly when her case broke out, again, it makes sense to me. Can you imagine how much harassment he'll have got? I'm pretty sure I'd leave too. But his son, on the other hand, he'd helped Carla get a new job. They'd spent some time together. Could he have been the one who gave her a lift? He would undoubtedly have a key to his father's apartment. Could he have waited for her, suggested they go for a drive after she got back to the flat? Or could he have been the one who picked her up outside the bar and later strategically returned her jacket and handbag back to the apartment? Or has he absolutely nothing to do with her disappearance either? I just don't know. 9 years after her disappearance in 2015, the FBI offered a $20,000 reward for any information on her disappearance. They launched a multimedia campaign to publicize the new reward, as well as notifying the news media. They placed digital billboards across the Newark area. Her photo has been distributed throughout the FBI's social media platforms, including Facebook and Twitter. That was 5 years ago, and the case remains unsolved. As far as we know, there are no leads in her case. I'll put the links in the description box, as always. Thank you, everyone, so much